Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Weissite, licensed clinical social worker with Terrebonne Home Care. Very glad you're joining us. However you may be joining us, we appreciate it. And listen, it's this time of year we start to feel that cool weather come in. We start to kind of know that it's fall. Well, fall for a lot of people is not just a season. I had a buddy of mine whose teacher asked him about the different seasons, and he said crawfish season and hunting season. And that's the only two things he knew. Somebody who can tell us a whole lot more about hunting season. We welcome to the program, Mitch Samaha. Mitch, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Not a problem.
All right, man. Mitch is the program manager for Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries. And Mitch, you've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, 23 years.
23 years, the Michael Jordan of wildlife and fisheries. And so tell us maybe some of the things that you enjoy most about the role with wildlife and fisheries. I mean, you've been doing it a long time. People look to you as an expert, but what do you enjoy about it?
I guess if I had to say one thing is the constant learning experience. It's a profession where as the minute that you think you know it all, Mother Nature comes and humbles you pretty quickly, you know.
Did Ida do some of that for you and for what it is that we're learning, that we're having to teach other people now?
Ida did a lot of things to a lot of people, and we were affected. My family was affected too. You know, not as bad as some.
Right.
But everybody was affected in some way, shape, or form. You know. But as far as wildlife damages and things like that, I'm not on that side of it anymore. I used to be a private lands biologist with the department, and I used to do, wildlife checks after storms and things like that. But I shifted more towards the educational aspect of the department services. Yeah.
And listen, that's one of the things that's awfully important. Like you said, it's always changing. Let's talk a little bit about how hunting season is upon us. Let's talk about some of the hunter education that really matters.
Well, you're absolutely right. A lot of times, the general public doesn't really think about something unless it's on their doorstep, and hunting season is no different. With the hunter education section, I mean, we have over 750 volunteer instructors that teach hunter education courses throughout the state.
750.
Yeah, and actually we're down. We used to have over 3,000 of them before COVID. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. COVID really did a number on our volunteer base because the vast majority of our instructors are retired, 65 and older, and whenever you think about the message that was being sent, asking a volunteer to donate their time is one thing, but whenever you have to put that same volunteer that is risking their own health, much less the health of their family members when they go back home. A lot of them dropped off.
That makes sense.
And so we're trying to recruit a lot of hunter ed instructors, and try to build that base back. But 750 volunteer instructors statewide. The vast majority of these courses are taught in the beginning of the summer, leading up to right around now.
Right.
And what we've seen this year is just from the public, just a lot of our classes have been canceled because of lack of participation. People just aren't signing up for them. But now, of course, when those first couple of cool fronts came through, things changed.
A lot of phone calls for it then, huh?
Things changed dramatically.
People trying to squeeze into classes at that point.
They're trying to squeeze them in.
And so that hunter safety is awfully important because it can be a risk to be out and hunting if you're not making a really good plan on the front end.
Planning is the key, actually, to develop a good plan. And it starts with a hunter safety, a hunting plan. And what I mean by a hunting plan is, people need to know where you are at all times. And I'm guilty of it. In my younger day, I was guilty of it myself. Mm-hmm. And that's just, hey, look, honey, I'm going to the hunting lease, and didn't drop a pin, didn't let her know exactly where I was going. And if something were to happen, either the boat breaks down or you fall out of a tree stand or other accident, it could be days before people can find you, So letting someone know where you're going and when you plan to return is, and more specifically, not just where you're going, specifically where you're going.
Exactly where you're going.
I belong to a hunting lease and it's a very good practice, where before you go to your hunting location, you have to pin out, they call it. You have to put a pin exactly where you're going to be. That way, if you're not back by, 2 hours after dark, somebody's going to look for you, and they're going exactly where you said you were going to be. So that's the first step in safety, is letting people know where you're going.
And quite frankly, it should be much easier at this day and age to be able to do just that, to drop a pin, to be able to, because our cellular capabilities have gotten so much better than just, hey, telling somebody this is where I may be or putting something up on a board. We have the better availabilities. But in our next segment, I want to talk a little bit about how the types of hunting in this area, it makes a difference, because those relate very often to boating safety. But communication is awfully important. We need to make sure that we're, for lack of a better term, over communicating about what we're doing. That's part of the safety plan for hunting, because hunting it's a risky activity. It's why we need to take the classes. And then when we come back, I want to talk about maybe who can hunt, who's available to do those things, and just what they need to do. A lot of people say fishing and hunting, they put it together, right? Wow. Those two things are different. But in our area, I was fortunate enough that about 15 years ago, a friend of mine got his pilot's license, and he begged me for a year to go fly with him. And the day I did, I could not be more surprised at the volume of water everywhere, even in the middle of Houma. It's hard to find the streets around the water from the air. So it's hard to talk about hunting without talking or thinking about water or boat safety.
That's right. Down here, you could say we're blessed or we're cursed, depending upon how you look at it.
That is correct.
But one of the things is, the vast majority of private property or hunting property is you're going to have to access it by boat.
Yeah.
So hunting safety goes hand in hand with boating safety. Just because it's hunting safety doesn't mean that boating safety rules and regulations are thrown out the window. They become even more important, because when we have to deal with the north winds blowing water out of the marshes, every year we get, rescue calls for boats that have been stranded on mud flats. Hypothermia is the number one killer in the outdoors. So when you're talking about boats, you're talking about, the potential to hit a submerged object, get thrown overboard, have your communications get wet, the inability to contact someone. And when that air temperature outside is 45, 42 degrees, and that water temperature is in the 50s and 60s, hypothermia can set in quickly. And so everybody out there that's using a boat to go hunting should, at a minimum, have at least one or two sets of dry blankets or clothing stuffed somewhere in a dry location in their boat for just such a circumstance. Yeah.
So those are some of the accidents that we can see, right? Yes. Those are some of the accidents that you guys experience, and that's again why it's so important to put that pin, right?
Yeah.
Because even if we're going, let's say we've been hunting for 20 years, we're going to the same place, we hunt the same lease, we put our blind in the same place. That something under the water can change. Mm-hmm. And getting there, we can do with our eyes closed. We better not. Mm-hmm. We need to keep our eyes wide open, especially after Ida.
Yes.
So many different things. Flutons are in different places. Yeah. It's just, things are different.
Yes.
And so we just need to be aware of that. So keeping warm blankets, very important. Don't presume that things are going to always be the same. They can change in a minute.
Assumptions are always the beginning of where mistakes are made. And believe it or not, a vast majority of hunting accidents occur with veteran hunters. Just one statistic I could throw out there to you is, tree stand accidents, tree stand falls. Major statistic, the average age of a person that goes into the hospital that falls out of a tree stand is in their mid-40s.
Wow.
And you're talking about somebody that's been hunting their entire life. And so there you go with your assumption that everything is going to be fine, when in reality, it can happen just like flipping a light switch,
North winds, changing water directions, temperature drops, all of those things. And think about the clothing and the layers. Mm-hmm. When I think of hunting, I think about layers, right?
Yeah.
It
helps.
Yeah. And especially because the most of our hunting comes in the winter time, or the winter season, if we can call us having one. But having layers and camo is, there's a reason why you want to wear camouflage, but camouflage also prevents people from being able to find you if there's no pin.
That's true. That's true.
It's just important to be able to do. Now, I'm a novice, don't do a whole lot of hunting, but it's interesting. The one thing I was thinking about for me, just got a boat recently. And if I want to go hunting, then now I'm a new person in a new boat and I got a gun. Those three things need better preparation than just it'll be okay.
Yeah, and that's where my section comes in. I mean,
Right.
we do a lot of educational work. We promote the shooting sports. We promote hunter safety because the fact of the matter is this: when it all boils down, who do you go hunting with? Do you go hunting with a complete stranger? No, you don't.
No, almost
so
never.
you're hunting with your father, your son, your cousin, your best friend, your uncle, or if you're a grandfather, a grandchild, So if a hunting accident occurs, who's it going to affect? It's not going to affect a stranger. 95% of the time, an injured party in a hunting accident is a member of that person's hunting party or family. So if you haven't considered taking hunter education seriously, maybe you ought to think about that because that's who it's going to affect.
And it's always safer to go hunting with someone. But when you go hunting with someone, there's another layer, talking about layers, of potential accidents that can happen with more than one person.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I've got a dear friend. He and one of his best friends had a hunting accident, and it was truly an accident about getting up to shoot a duck, and one of them.
Waterfowl hunting is one of those hunting activities that you really need to have somebody experienced in that blind with you. You're dealing with loaded firearms that are at eye level. You may have a dog, untrained dog. You're dealing with unstable boating, pirogues, mud boats, things like that.
Many things.
It's a little. Every hunting activity has its own concerns.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the more common maybe accidents that take place and happen.
Actually, the most common accident statistically that causes injury, that requires a hospital visit when it comes to hunting is tree stand falls.
Okay. And you kind of mentioned that average age, people in their 40s, right?
It's when most people think about a hunting accident, immediately their mind goes to a firearms incident. But, over the course of the last couple of decades, because of hunter education efforts, those accidents have tremendously dropped off. As a matter of fact, you're as far as firearm-related accidents, hunting as a sport is safer than badminton or tennis when it comes to injuries.
Wow!
Because of the hunter education efforts that have been put forth. But the one thing that keeps rearing its ugly head year after year after year is tree stand accidents, and the statistics on that is that 1 out of every 3 hunters if they hunt from an elevated platform, 1 out of every 3 hunters in their career will fall from a tree stand. Now, the alarming fact about that statistic is when you dive a little bit deeper into the details, and how does that get reported? It only gets reported
with injury.
With injury, not just injury, significant injury enough to go to a hospital to require treatment. So if the statistic is 1 out of every 3 over the course of a lifetime of hunting, how many close calls happen? How many people fell and sprained an ankle and just went home and shook it off, or had a close call, or had to change their underwear, so to speak.
Right.
So you think about that, and it's a far more common and preventable is the key word here, because just about every new tree stand sold in stores today comes with a fall arrest harness, and people just aren't wearing them.
They just don't put them
They
on.
just not wearing them. The main thought is it's not going to happen to me, and that's the biggest problem.
It's not going to happen to me, but it happens to 1 in 3.
Hey, I like that. I like that, Ron.
Something to realize. So that's the most common, which we appreciate. What's the deadliest?
The deadliest always will be hunter mistaken for game, because hunter mistaken for game violates a few different commandments of hunter safety. And
Okay.
that number one is the ability to positively identify your target and what's beyond your target. And it's the most deadly because, for obvious reasons, you have a hunter actively targeting another hunter with a firearm.
Right.
And the firearms used, especially in deer hunting, are powerful.
Yeah, high power.
They're very
rounds of
very
ammunition.
powerful. Now, how do you prevent stuff like that? Well, during the hunting season, Hunter Orange is there for a reason. Blaze Orange. It identifies you as a human. And people resisted that Hunter Orange because they don't want to be seen, and they falsely assume that Hunter Orange just makes them stand out to not just to humans, but to all animals. But if you knew a little bit about physiology of the game animals, mammals, the majority of mammals cannot see Hunter Orange. They see orange as a gray. They actually, blues and yellows stand out far greater to an animal than Hunter Orange. Humans can see orange because we're in the primate family, and we have those cones that detect red wavelengths of light. But the safest way to, if you're going to go out there, if you shoot an animal, a deer, and you're tracking that animal to and from or going to or from your stand, you should have Hunter Orange on.
Have your Hunter Orange on.
Yes.
And it's something that you can control.
Yes.
But being shot by someone else is maybe something you can't control.
Correct. That's why you have to identify
Hunter
yourself.
Orange. Have a plan.
That's it.
Have blankets in your boat in case the weather drops and you need them.
Yeah.
Wear your Hunter Orange. It will not impact the deer seeing you. You are gray to them.
The only thing that will attract, and it doesn't matter how much or how expensive your camouflage is, the one thing that will absolutely prevent a deer from seeing you is if you don't move.
So it's all about your control and knowing what to do or what not to do. Let's spend about a minute and a half or so talking about how people can now access that hunter registration. And if things change, there's a new website, right?
We had some big changes this past year. We went to a new system, customer self-service system. The website, which you could put up later, on your is LouisianaOutdoors.com.
LouisianaOutdoors.com.
And every customer that's ever had a license before, or they're already in the system, all you have to do is go to log in. You will be cued in to identify yourself. There'll be some identifying information. If your name has changed, if you've been married and your last name has changed, if your address has changed, it will allow you to access your account. You can update your email address, which is extremely important. You can access your boater education card, hunter education card, and update everything. And whenever you hit update, you can actually download your Hunter Ed, Boater Ed cards, link your wildlife and fisheries account, including your deer tags, to your LA wallet.
LA wallet, right? Which is
and
wonderful.
have everything on hand. And but the important thing about the email address is, because everything is digital now,
They're going to send it to you digital.
It's all digital.
Right.
So it's no more snail mail.
Right.
It's just going to come
there.
digital.
Access is much easier. Hunter education is much easier. Go out, enjoy hunting, but do it safely.
Correct.
And so, Mitch, thank you so very much for your time. Really appreciate you coming on for all these segments to be able to talk about the importance of that. We appreciate it.
Not a problem.
And guys, you enjoy as well. When you get out there, know that boater safety, hunting safety is important. Go out to that website, get your information, go out and have a good time and do it safely. And that'll do it for this particular edition of Bayou Time. Don't go anywhere. A lot more local TV here on HTV.